If your firm feels one good decision away from a breakthrough, then this is for you. We're hosting our first mastermind of 2026 in Phoenix on February 26th and 27th. And it's 2 days designed to actually move your firm forward and grow who you are as a leader. Day 1 is a full day of hot seats where you break into groups and work through the real problems in your business. Day 2 is our wellness workshop featuring sessions that help you boost your energy, lower stress, and think more clearly. We have Jocelyn and Aaron Freeman, hosts of a top 10 marriage podcast and masters in psychology, teaching relationship skills that you'll use at work and at home. A lunch and learn on habit formation with Tyson, and more. View the full event details and grab your seat at maxwellevents.com.
Get ready, because here's your host, Tyson Mutrix.
Welcome back to the Guild Live Show. I've got a really interesting one today. It's been an interesting week and a half or so of AI, but we're not going to do a lot of AI today. We're going to do some other things. I'm going to take a bit of a break. We have one topic on AI where I'm sandwiching a couple things together so I can fit as much as I can into one topic. But other than that, the other ones are going to be, we're going to get some other topics for this week. But lots going on with Gemini and ChatGPT fighting it out for supremacy. And it looks like right now Gemini is winning that battle. Google is really, it looks like they were holding something back a little bit. So we're not really going to get into that today, though. That's I think another topic for another day. But the first thing I want to get into is, this is for some of you health nuts, and I've over the last couple of years kind of gotten into this a little bit more when it comes to like gadgets, wearables, and all that. So this topic, we're going to talk about HealthKit. This is something that is going to be integrated with ChatGPT. I think that's kind of cool. And then some AI ideas that some of them are related. That's why I combined the two. There was an article I was reading about some different ways that you can prompt, and there's so many articles on prompting and all that, but there's a couple things in there I wanted to bring up. But what's really interesting about what's happening with HealthKit and ChatGPT, they're going to have an integration where your health data will be fed into ChatGPT, so you can use the like the LLM ChatGPT, you can use it as a health coach. And I find that really interesting. And I end up talking about this quite a bit, where our health, our mental health, our physical health is all wrapped up with running the firm too. It is not, those are not separate things. Those are all tied in together. And the more you are a well-oiled machine, that you're taking care of yourself, the better you are going to be at being a leader, at being able to come up with new ideas. You're going to be able to lead your firm into the future because you're going to be healthier, all those things. So that's why I want to bring this one up. This was really, really interesting. There's a few features that they talk about. So references, it's going to have 5 specific health data categories: activity, sleep, diet, breathing, and hearing. So it's going to allow for personalized feedback when it comes to that. Proactive coaching. This is cool. So with access to your personal health data, ChatGPT is going to be able to offer proactive suggestions, such as adjusting a workout plan based on restless sleep or flagging underfueling after a long run. It's really, really cool. I'll give you an example. You can do this now, I guess, for yourself, taking some of the data. I use a Whoop, thanks to Jeremy Danielson. Anyone that is in the Guild, join us in our Whoop group. We've got a Guild Whoop group that it's kind of fun. We talk about different things when it comes to health and all that. So would love to have you there. It's a nice little fun group that we have. So if you do join the Guild, or if you're a part of the Guild, let me know. And you have a Whoop, we'll get you added to that group. It's a fun little group. But I'll give you a real world example about that. I was on Tuesday nights, I usually do jujitsu, and my recovery was in the red. And I think it was dehydration, because I hadn't worked out on Monday, because I'd done, that was my recovery day. I'd worked out on Saturday, I'd worked out on Sunday, I'd worked out on Friday, and I was using Monday as a recovery day. But I was still in the red on Tuesday. And I think it was because it wasn't sleep. And I think it had to do with dehydration. So I took yesterday off, right? I think what's going to happen when it comes to the proactive coaching with ChatGPT is, if you sometimes sometimes I'm not going to observe that and think I should not work out. I'm just going to do it anyways. Usually with me, I'm going to say, let's just push through it. It's been a rough day, but let's just do it. Probably what the proactive coaching is going to say, hey, listen, you're in the red. Today is probably not a day you should be working out. Let's take it easy. Let's get some rest. And tomorrow, let's hit it hard. Okay. That's probably what that proactive coaching is going to be like. And I think that's pretty cool. Having that like on-demand coach, that's pretty cool. Like think about what you pay for human coaching right now. Not cheap, not cheap at all. And that's one of those things that's gonna be pretty cool. So I want to make sure I brought that up. And then when it comes to some of these prompts, I want to make sure I bring this up too, because the article here was from Digital Trends. 9 unexpected things I was able to do with ChatGPT, and a few you must try. So there was visual calorie estimation, snap photos of restaurant meals to get immediate estimates on calories and macros, filling the gap where standard tracking apps fail. That's interesting. Interior design visualization, I'll skip that one. Content repurposing, upload written articles to generate ready to shoot video scripts and shot lists, simplifying the transition from text to video content. I do find that that's a helpful one. Let's say you see someone else's article from a bar journal, right? You snap a picture of that, upload it, say, hey, write me a video script on the same topic. You don't have to rip off what they're saying. It's a topic that you want to cover and you have the expertise in it, and you repurpose some of that content, or it could be some of your own content too, for sure. Complex scheduling. Use AI to coordinate multi-step processes such as timing different dishes for a large meal, organizing a complex vitamin/medication regimen, if you find that helpful. Okay. Targeted research. So utilize deep research modes to find specific alternatives for routines that accommodate personal constraints or injuries. And this is where I was seeing there was a lot of health related things in this specific article. That's why I was tying them together with HealthKit. And then create a brainstorming, generate personalized gift ideas or custom imagery for cards based on specific details about the recipient. So that's all I'm going to cover on this one. I want to smash as much in here when it comes to AI as I could. So let's move on to the next one. And this is 3 bitter truths all marketers need to hear right now. And this is an article that is from the founder of Mo Martech, Mani Oliede, and it's about the 3 bitter truths that challenge modern marketing norms. And that's interesting because I don't know how many of you will know, but my degree was marketing. And although some of the basic concepts have stayed the same, there are things that seem to have changed a bit when it comes to marketing. The social media has had a massive role in that, and how we communicate with people and all that. So that's really interesting how things have changed so much. But so she argues that the industry has become too obsessed with immediate revenue and technology, neglecting the fundamental principles of building relationships, crafting cohesive strategies, and understanding your consumer psychology. The understanding consumer psychology, that's the area where I don't think things have changed a whole lot. If those of you have not read the book Influence by Robert Cialdini, highly recommend it. One of my favorite books of all time. I would recommend reading the first edition. It's denser. He did a newer version of Influence. The studies are more updated, but I find that the first book, even though it was a denser read, that it was a better book. I love that book. It's such a good one. It helps you understand the human psychology of consumers. That part's really, really cool. But so I don't think that the psychology has changed for the most part, but it's just the different strategies that have changed. And you have seen a lot of people. 2025 was all about people becoming more in person when it comes to some of the marketing, where it was more the human, like all of the big names, Gary V, Hormozy, all of them were talking about, that human element, and that became more of a thing. So I think this is sort of the tail end of some of that, but some of the key takeaways from this one, where marketing is not revenue generation. So focusing strictly on revenue forces marketers to throw spaghetti at the wall and chase leads for instant gratification. That is a big problem. Maybe something we don't talk about enough is where we have almost gamified ourselves, where we've got to, oh my gosh, we're doing this and we've got to get that result right away. And that's not how marketing works a lot of times. Marketing is It's many things that are happening all at one time, and you don't always see that instant results. Just kind of a side story. The whole, advertising on podcasting years ago, right? When all that began, what a lot of the marketers started to see was when they first started marketing, they weren't getting any results, right? So they started to cancel all their ads. And then what they noticed months later, they started getting an influx of sales from the podcast. And they realized that there's a massive lag between podcast customers and the advertising, the ads running and everything, and whenever you actually convert. So don't automatically assume just because you're not getting instant results that you're not going to get results. So it's a very true thing about instant gratification. True marketing, she says, builds affinity and relationships, which requires patience and serving the customer rather than just a CEO. And this is where we have found that Facebook has still been our anchor when it comes to marketing. It's building those relationships, and it's been. I was reading comments yesterday where, there was some group that I'm not in that tagged my name though. And so I got to see the comment about, recommending our firm for an injury case. And so a lot of it has to do with that building of those relationships. I think it's really important. Another takeaway, demand gen is execution, not strategy. So a real strategy isn't just a series of one-off content pieces or email blasts. It is a consistent multi-year narrative based on consumer psychology. And I don't know if you remember this. She talks about in this article, Dove's Real Beauty campaign. It was, I don't know, I'd say probably 10 years ago, where it was during the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly. And the whole thing was about real beauty, and it showed women in different images of women without makeup on. And it was a beautiful, beautiful commercial, wonderfully made. And when you have things like that, deeply rooted things, and their whole and she talks about this in the article about it's more of a long-term strategy with the customers, and understanding those customers. And it's not just one of those things where you're going to run this ad and then instantly get a flood of people buying your product. You're not going to get that necessarily, but what you are going to get is you're going to have people that are remembering that. It's like a deeply rooted sort of an advertisement, sort of commercial, where it's like, if you think like the Chevy commercials, like a rock, like those sorts of commercials, they've been running more of those, American made type commercials lately. So they did one last year for the holidays. They did one this year for the holidays. Those are those deeply rooted multi-year long-term strategy campaigns. You look at the sort of the lifetime value is what it is. So average lifetime value of a client, as opposed to, like, we look at average fee quite a bit. Well, that's a big number for us. But another way to look at it is if you look at the average lifetime value of that client. So how many more times might that client come to you? And if you look at it that way, you're not looking at it as a one-off. You're looking at it as okay, this person might come to me a few times, maybe twice in their lifetime. Who knows? And okay, what's that value to the firm? You start to look at your clients a little bit differently. And then another key takeaway, the last one we'll cover, technology cannot fix bad marketing. Tools like AI and CRMs are only meant to operationalize good foundational principles. They cannot replace the human connection, which remains the primary driver of sales. Okay. People buy from people. That's the main takeaway. Totally agree. And that's why I've been talking about this for a while. You're using the technology not to replace people, but to supplement it so that you can then push the people into more of the human to human contact. Okay. They're more of the customer service department. That's what we've been talking about for a while. And that's something that you should definitely be focused on. So stop chasing leads, start building the trust. It's a really important part of this. And so really, if you think about those are really harsh realities for a lot of marketers, because a lot of it's about instant gratification these days. And so we want to try to get away from that. All right, let's get on to being average. And this is such a short little article from Seth Godin from Seth's blog. I actually, you know what I might even do? I'm just going to share my screen on this. This is such a short one that it's easy. So mediocre means average. Two different ways to consider this. First, in the marketplace, where most people, most of the time, want the thing that most people want, the average one. Exceptional is the exception. Second, in the committee meeting, where the easiest way forward is to sand off interesting edges, eliminate unknowns, and challenge as little as possible. When you put these together, you see the relentless slide towards banality. For people who care enough to develop skill and bring bravery to the work, this is a huge opportunity, not an easy or an obvious one, but perhaps one worth chasing. I really loved it. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's a nice reminder that we can sometimes be trapped into becoming mediocre. You shoot that video and a buddy of yours says, "Why are you shooting so many videos? Why are you posting those online?" And so, that's just one sanding, right? And a lot of times people tend to ignore the people say, "Hey man, I really like that video. That was awesome. Really good." Or a client that say, "Hey, that video that you did, awesome work. That really helped explain things for me. I really appreciate it." But then you read the YouTube comment and think, "Oh, this is dumb. Why am I doing this?" So you stop to do it, or you start to make your things more bland, and you choose not to take that risk on that certain marketing idea that you had, or you don't take a risk on a legal strategy that you think it's a little bit outside the norm. And the biggest sanders, the ones with the biggest grit, those of you that know anything about woodworking, the more of the 60 grit, not the fine 500, 800 grit sandpaper. Is that like that 60 where it's just taking big chunks. Some of the biggest ones are like judges, where they're so trapped in that governmental function, where anything outside the norm can be viewed by them as, not a good thing. You got to ignore a lot of that. And don't become average. You don't ever want to be average. I gave that presentation, Nerds and Weirdos, a while ago. I think it was the third Max Lawcon, I think is when I gave it. And the big part of that was like we want weirdos, we want nerds, we want the people that are not like the normal people, the ones that are exceptional. And we even talked, Amy and I, we talked to our kids and we talk about how you're weird and we want you to be weird. Like we call them weird and we say it like that. That's a compliment. We want you to be weird. And that way, part of that is we're building up their defense systems a little bit, where if someone were to call them weird, damn right I am. You know what I mean? Like that's not gonna hurt their feelings. No way. Yeah, I'm exceptional. I'm different. I'm not average. I'm not just like everybody else. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll ask the question, and you could do this of your firms too, right? Where this isn't just a parenting. This definitely is not a parenting tips segment. This is just something, we do, but you can do it in your firm too, where just ask, do you want to be like everybody else? No. No, you don't want to be like everybody else. Ask that question. Ask that question to your people. Ask that question to your kids. Do you really want to be like everybody else? And the answer is usually going to be no, right? So I think that was a really good lesson, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it can be really easy to slide into banality, like he talked about. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. I think I beat that one to death with as small of it as a blog post as it was, but it's really interesting on that topic. It was 1, 2, 3, basically 4 paragraphs, and they were short paragraphs. And I'm reading about it on a live show to my people. Just think about the content doesn't have to be super long. So don't think that it has to be super long. It just has to be impactful. Okay. And a little different. Think outside the box a little bit. All right. This next article, it makes me laugh because it says 7 ways to learn faster and improve your memory, backed by neuroscience, but there's really only 6. But they've kind of sandwiched some things together. So whatever, that's fine. So here's the key takeaways. So when it comes to 7 ways to learn faster, the article outlines 7 neuroscience-backed strategies to accelerate learning and boost memory retention. So instead of relying on rote memorization or simple repetition, they talk about different techniques that you can use. So one of the first techniques is test, don't just rehearse. It's a good one. Most of us rehearse, me including. So test, don't just rehearse. Self-testing creates context and helps you identify exactly what you don't know, which is more effective than simply rereading or rehearsing a pitch. So test it out. Maybe give yourself a couple people as an audience, test it out, and don't just rehearse. Or if you are, those of you that rehearse in your head, stop doing that. Actually vocalize it, because you actually having it come out of your mouth sometimes. So what I found is sometimes things are hard to say, right? Where if let's say I've rehearsed it in my head, but then I start to, for the first time, say it out loud and don't realize that using a word or a series of words, I have a bunch of T's or F's, close together, it can be really difficult to say. I'm just using that as one example, but sometimes you'll give yourself a tongue twister, and on the page it looks beautiful, but actually coming out of your mouth is a completely different story. The next tip is use interleaving. I hope I'm saying that right. Interleaving. Practice related concepts or skills in parallel. So, for example, different types of arguments. So, practice related concepts or skills in parallel rather than focusing on just one. Okay. This forces the brain to differentiate between them, preventing mindless automaticity. That is not an easy one to say. Automaticity. And so that's an interesting thing, interesting concept. So you're practicing related concepts or skills in parallel rather than focusing on just one. I can see how that could really benefit you. Like, let's say you're, litigation, marketing, whatever it may be, but let's just focus on marketing. Let's say you were focusing on marketing and you have different related concepts or different skills. Let's say that in parallel, you're writing SE, actually Facebook ads and Google ads. Those are related because they're both ads. And you can compare and contrast as to which one might work on Facebook and which one might work on Google. That could be a really effective way of doing things, and see which one works better and how you might be able to modify each. Speaking of modification, modify your practice, slightly changing conditions such as speaking faster, slower, or waiting a day between sessions. That triggers reconsolidation, where existing memories are recalled and strengthened with new knowledge. For me, this is just sleeping. I a lot of times what I'll do is if I'm working on something and I'm struggling with it, whether if it's writing or thinking through a problem, you name it, just sleeping on it and letting my brain sort of reconsolidate and sort of gather everything, and I can look at it in a new light is really, really helpful for me on certain things. So I think that is a very effective technique, at least for me. So maybe it'll work for you. The next thing is the production effect. Saying information out loud makes it more distinct in long-term memory compared to reading silently. I would not have thought that was true, but apparently it is. So the production effect, saying information out loud makes it more distinct in long-term memory compared to reading silently. I think they may have to do with, maybe the way you say something. So you're like, oh yeah, I said it that way. And maybe it's just gives you more data points to memorize something. Distributed practice is the next one, spacing out learning in bursts. So the effort required to retrieve information after a break makes the memory harder to forget. So space out learning in bursts. So the effort required to retrieve information after a break makes the memory harder to forget. That's pretty cool. So add in some breaks in there. That's pretty good. And then the last one, biological boosts. Sleep is essential for memory consolidation. So these are the last two. It's the biological boost. It's sleep and exercise. Okay. It's really what it comes down to. Sleep is essential for memory consolidation, while moderate to intense exercise can improve recall and even increase the size of the hippocampus. There you go. I think there's a lot of useful ways of, especially as attorneys and as law firm owners, that is pretty important for us. So, and then the last thing here is from Harvard Business Review. Could your company benefit from fast advertising? I love this concept. So hopefully we can cover it in the next 5 minutes or so. So, and this was, as I said, it was an article. This is actually from their Ideal Cast podcast. So it's from the host, Allison Beard, and she interviews Ayelet Israeli about fast advertising. It's the strategy of creating rapid fire marketing content that capitalizes on fleeting cultural moments, like the Oreo Super Bowl tweet or Peloton's response to, and just like that. So they discuss how companies can restructure their teams to react within hours rather than weeks, the importance of social listening, and how to balance the need for speed with the risks of being tone deaf. So to me, it's a fun one. So key takeaways: speed requires structural change. You cannot execute fast advertising with a traditional multi-month approval process. So you have to really get rid of all the hierarchies when it comes to this. And then you just create your creatives to say, hey, listen, have your own little war room, and something comes in and you catch that cultural event, and then you go out and do something about it, post something about it. That's a super easy way of doing it, and just create a process for it where you have, let's say you have maybe Google alerts for certain topics, or you just look at things that are trending on X, or I always forget the other name of the name of the other one. There's also the Facebook one, Threads. That's the other one too. You name it. There's so many different trending places you can go to these days. So, find out what's trending and then post about it. Authenticity is the guardrail. Okay. Not every branding belongs in every conversation. I'll get back to something in a second, but authenticity is the guardrail. Not every brand belongs in every conversation. The key, so this authenticity is the guardrail. The key to safety is asking, does my brand have a credible reason to be in this moment? Avoid politics and disasters. Stick to pop culture where the brand can offer a wink to the audience. All right. This gets to where the thing I want to talk about anyways. So there's two moments that actually I just was having fun with AI and posted on Facebook and had great results from both of them. One was the Sydney Sweeney jeans ads with American Eagle. I can't remember. It's not American Eagle, whatever it is, the jean company. And I had I put a picture of me in a suit, and I had AI turn the suit into a jeans suit. So I put up some ads, a Facebook post about that. It was pretty funny. People had a kind of kick out of that. And then the other one was the Cracker Barrel. When they changed their logo, we changed our logo from Mutrix firm injury lawyers to the new Cracker Barrel. Actually, no, we did the old Cracker Barrel logo is what we did, and we also put the new Cracker Barrel. We did both. We did a combination of both, and that one got a lot of comments on it as well. So, but there was part of this where it's like, okay, does our brand, now that wasn't specifically the firm, that was more me, but I the way I related it was, I guess the Cracker Barrel part of it was more of the firm, but when it comes to the jeans one, it was like me in my suit, right? So, people know me as a lawyer. I had, for 4th of July, I'd also posted something with the American flag was in my suit. And that also got a lot of good feedback. So the people that had commented, many of those people also commented on the jeans one. So those two were kind of tied together, and that kind of worked out as well. All right, let's get to the next one, the comedy writer model. So effective social teams function like late night comedy writers, pitching many ideas rapidly and accepting internal failure. That's in parentheses, rejected jokes to find the one that lands perfectly with the public mood. Human judgment is greater than AI. While AI can generate ideas, human taste is required to determine appropriateness. And then the last thing, social listening. You cannot react if you aren't listening. Successful fast advertising relies on constant monitoring of social sentiment to identify trending topics and gauge public reaction in real time. All right, that's all we have this week. Hopefully you got something out of these. I wanted to shift gears a little bit, get a little bit out of the AI stuff, focus more on some of the other things. So hopefully you got some of this. Maybe I'll have a little bit more AI next week, but we'll definitely have another show next week. But have a wonderful week, everybody, and we will be seeing you.